Welcome to the Deskbound Therapy Podcast, hosted by David London. David is a posture and mobility expert, yoga teacher, and certified online trainer. This podcast is about empowering desk-bound professionals, how to live their healthiest life, and move pain-free. Now, let's dive into this episode.
Treat your training as a ritual and not a habit.
Awesome. Welcome to episode 46 of the Deskbound Therapy Podcast. I'm with my buddy today, Movement Fix, aka Dr. Ryan DeBell. How's it going, buddy? Great to connect with you. That's an interesting quote. And would you be, first tell the listeners a bit about yourself and then the meaning behind it?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on the show and doing the show. I think it's more work behind the scenes than people really realize to produce a show. So thank you for doing that behind the scenes stuff to make this possible. So let's talk about the quote. I was working out recently, training, whatever you want to call it. And I realized that habits, everybody talks about habits. You need to have good habits. Habits are boring to me. A habit is like something I have to do. It's on a list and I have to do it. And it's this thing I'm trying to develop. A ritual is like something
it's empowering.
Sacred. Right. Have a habit where you do rituals. Make doing your ritual a habit. But if you think that a workout is a habit and I need to develop habits, it's like, that's not inspirational to me. Like we're talking about training your physical body, this thing that you don't ever get another one of. Like it should be ritualistic, something sacred to you. So that's what I mean by that when I say that. So a little bit about myself. So my name's Ryan. I studied business in college and then decided to pursue more education in health, particularly I think when it comes to health, I think that in the healthcare world, we have it backwards. I think that primary care is how to be a healthy human being, and alternative or complementary care are medications.
100%.
When you didn't, it's like we have that backwards. Why would like knowing how to train and exercise and sleep and meditate and relax and work out hard and eat healthy? Those are alternatives to what? That's the primary. So I think we have that backwards. But anyway, so then I studied, I went to chiropractic school in Portland. I studied there and I also did a master's degree in exercise science. Then I started a clinic called Movement Fix, which also became a seminar sort of thing because I didn't really, I was just doing everything. There was really no plan behind it. I was just going with the flow. And I taught a couple hundred seminars primarily to trainers and other healthcare providers and fitness enthusiasts on essentially how to find the reasons why you can't lift well. Like what's the reason? Are you too flexible? Are you too stiff? Do you just not really know what you're doing? Because at the time it seemed like madness was happening where no matter what was going on, everybody thought that it was because they were not stretching enough. And stretching is really important, I think. But it's not always the reason somebody's limited. So then I taught those for a while, made some digital products and courses for people to learn and do things on their own. And now I'm sort of shifting gears, and I made a company that is serving manual therapists and all quote unquote alternative care providers to make really useful and helpful products for them to help them with their work. So that's kind of the cliff notes.
Man, I'm really excited for this episode, and we're really going to talk about, why training hard and, killing yourself at the gym isn't actually making you healthy. But just to preface that, I love that you said, pursue physical therapy, chiropractic, like this, like exercise should be primary care. And, I'm just finishing up physical therapy school and after doing personal training for 6-7 years. And I'm like, I want to train my clients. I don't want to, baby them with little exercises. Like I think people don't necessarily not need physical therapy. What they need is personal training. They need to be taught to, to learn better and to move more. It's not just coming in to fix this one thing, but like, let's help you live that active lifestyle. And, just like we're going to talk about today, without killing yourself, as opposed to, just lying on the bed and doing some core activations. That's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, a lot of people, there's like multiple camps, right? Because people want to identify with a camp or a group of people who think in a particular way. And then they have wars between these camps.
Oh, yeah. You see it all the time, especially being on social media.
Yeah. It's a whole other thing. But it's so, it's like toxic, but useful at the same time. Anyways, so I really appreciate people like you who are making useful, helpful, using it in a way that's like nobody needs a jaded, cynical person making jokes about how stupid everything is. Like that person needs to resolve their inner issues instead of vomiting on social media to try to make themselves feel good. It's just, it's hurting everybody. And this world does not need that. This world needs positivity. It needs helpful things. It needs resources. So anyways, when it's interesting, right? Because so what I was saying about these groups, you have these groups who think like, oh, exercise is stupid and it's man-made because in nature, we would have been climbing and running and doing all this stuff. Well, the reality is we live in complex societies. And we live in a world that we don't have to do anything physically. You can literally now never leave your house, order food, work on your computer. You don't have to do anything. And we have diseases of excess. We have diseases of abundance. It feels like everybody thinks that there's scarcity of everything, right? We have all of our diseases are diseases of abundance. We have too much. It's too easy. You can literally tap on your phone and food shows up. It's a problem of abundance, which means we have to use our brains to train these physical bodies intelligently. And that's the key. We have to. It's just what we have to do if you want to live, a life where you can physically, flourish, let's say. And so we have to train intelligently. And then so the question is, what does that even mean? Does it mean going to the gym and crushing yourself, working as hard as you can? Does it mean doing a little exercises on a plinth, like people think of with a PT, you're going to just lay down and pull on some bands for 5 minutes. And then that's it. Is it go to a CrossFit gym and pound yourself into a pulp every day? is it doing, and I did CrossFit for 10 years. I feel like I could make that joke.
Oh yeah.
Which I did. I really definitely, it's good. It's good and it's bad. Like, everything has good and bad. Or do you want to do bodybuilding and just put on these massive muscles for no reason, really? So it's like, what are you trying to do? And I think that's really the question we should be asking is, what are we trying to do with our training? And maybe that is replicate what would have happened, naturally to a physical body if we didn't have society and we had to go find an animal or plant things or move dirt or whatever, the task is. So that's what I think a lot about in terms of training and what that really looks like. And how do you create that? How do you create that without overdoing it? And overdoing it can mean several things, right? You could overdo it to the actual structures. Like you do too much of one particular exercise and then you strain or tear something because you didn't have the right volume, but you can also really just wear yourself out. And that's not good either. Like people always talk about a lion, every human being that, wants to be tough, wants to be a lion. Like most animals in nature, they're not out there stressing themselves to the point where they have to lay on the ground. Like they do that very rarely. And yet we think that we have to do it 5-6 days a week. It's actually really unnatural to do that, in my opinion, to be so stressed all the time. I think we should have less stress, which means the dosage and the exercise selection and the way that you structure your workouts and everything is really important to consider. But those are not easy questions necessarily, but I think at least for me, that's the way I think about it now is how do I balance the stress of training with the longevity of function and capability of my body? And then whatever physical manifestation, bigger muscles, whatever, will be a result of that. I think training just to make your muscles bigger is kind of weird. Like, why do you just want bigger muscles? Like, that's a different goal. That person wants to feel good about themselves. They have something that they want to look good in the mirror. It helps them feel good. It gives them a sense of
accomplishment. Yeah,
it could be accomplishment. It could be
confidence. Yeah.
It does feel good to use your muscles. It does feel good to pump. So there's certain, feedback loops there to incentivize us to do those things.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned like training intelligently, because I feel like I've been working out 11 years now, and I'm just in the last year, I've gotten to the point I'm just really trying to reconnect with my why and my goals. So I didn't really train much in the summer. I just like played ultimate frisbee and did running, did maybe 1 or 2 workouts a week. And it was weird for me because, doing upper body once a week, was very weird for me. But now, I'm doing things a little bit differently. And now I'm going back into more just kind of, I'm in my off season. I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking, did I enjoy that? Did my body like it? I found I was overdoing it and it was too much stress, and I was, flaring up some old injuries. So now I'm just kind of just going to the gym when I feel like it, moving when I feel like it. But I feel like it takes time. I've learned so much from overdoing it and training too hard to give me that awareness. Whereas before I just thought that's just how it is, right? Monday's chest, Tuesday's back, Wednesday's leg, Thursday's arms. That's what the bro split. That's what we're taught. So it's hard to like break free from that.
Right. It's like, that's what we're taught by everybody, but like kind of also nobody in a way, right? Like nobody's like, it's like this collective way of thinking about training. I think it's way easier to overtrain than people think.
Is it overtraining though, or is it under recovery, or is it overtraining in terms of you think like overstressing the body?
Well, I think those are the same thing.
Right.
I think overtraining and under recovering, I think those are synonymous essentially. I think people just do too much. Like, I think you have people who do nothing, and then you have a lot of people doing too much because we think that we have to do it so hard for it to be beneficial. I think that mentality is rampant, that you have to push so hard, otherwise you're not going to get the benefit. And I don't think that's true. Unless you have a desired goal of being the highest performer. But even if you listen to what they say recovery is just as important, and they have to really focus on it. And what does that mean? It means, I guess, that they feel like they could go and they have to hold themselves back a little bit. In being intelligent is holding yourself back because we know that just because it feels like you could push harder, we know that that isn't always the best choice. So we have to hold back sometimes a little bit. You can't go all out every time.
So like, why would someone want to not pull back? Is it just so they don't prevent injury, or is it just because like training isn't like all of like the only thing there is in life? Like, what are some reasons why someone should consider like not killing themselves in the gym?
Right. Well, we all have limited energy. You only have so much willpower. You only have so much energy in a day. You only have so much ability to get yourself to do something. And I did this for years. I overexpended myself at the gym. And I look back now and I'm like, for what? Really? Like, what was I didn't even know what I was trying to do. I just thought I had to train hard and I have to do it, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And I have to find inside of myself the ability to push even harder. And I think that's a road that leads to nowhere.
Right.
Like, if you take a longer view of your life and your body, what do you want to do? I'm guessing most people, I'm not guessing, I mean, 99% of people, or whatever the number is, 99.99% of people are not like competitive athletes. So if you're not a competitive athlete, I mean, if you just like to train hard, that's great. Everybody can do what they want. But if you're trying to be healthy, I think you have to think to yourself like, okay, I have other things in my life that require my focus and my energy and my attention. Do I really want to splurge all of it in my workout? Is that really the best way to utilize your resources of both time and energy that you have in limited quantities? And for me, the answer is no. Personally, I want to do the amount that I am making progress, because I think it's important that if you're not improving, you're either staying the same or decreasing. And of course, physically, every human body will physically degrade at some point. That's, of course, I mean, that's just inevitable. But we can do things and we can train in a way that allows us to, keep getting better. Like, people think that as they get older, it's inevitable that they'll get, their bones will be less dense, they'll lose muscle mass. And I really don't think that's true. I think the thing is that habits and behaviors compound over time. And like when you're 20 years old, you grew, you were a kid and you played sports. For a lot of people, you were very active. And then when you're 20, it's like you're still riding on that momentum. But if you're 50, you have 30 more years from 20 to 50 of like behavior. So is it your behavior or is it your age? Because plenty of people in their 50s, 60s, 70s start training and get better. So if you can just continue throughout your life of getting a little bit better, increasing your work capacity a little bit, if you're not trying to be a super high performing athlete, I think that comes with consequences. You give up certain things when you do that. Do you have better control of your body? Can you get into more positions? Can you control those positions better? Are you maintaining or improving the range of motion of your joints? Those are other things to consider. Are you developing skills? So I think there's so much more to training the physical body than just increasing the work capacity and the strength of the muscles. Because look at something like dancing. That's rhythm, right? That's a whole other thing of being physical. Dance or like somebody fighting. There's like an art to it, or playing a game or whatever. There's so much more to using and training the physical body than lifting weights as hard as you can. That's one. And I think that what happens is that you have to be able to hold multiple ideas in your mind at the same time. There's a benefit to strength and conditioning training. There's a benefit to running. There's a benefit to training agility. There's a benefit to doing something rhythmic. There's a benefit to doing yoga, something like, depending on how it's sort of a complicated discussion. It's very dense material yoga. There's a benefit to playing sports. There's a benefit to doing combat. There's a benefit to all of these things. They all have their purpose. And I think a mixture of them is really important. I like to think of the human body as we're like a movement omnivore. Like we can do so many things with this. It's not like it just does one thing. Like you can eat broccoli, you could eat a croissant, you could eat ground beef, you could eat noodles, and it all, you can digest all of it. And it all has its place and its purpose and the things that it provides you. And I think that similarly, we can eat, so to speak, different types of training, different techniques, different methods. And there's more than most people are exploring. That's for sure.
No, it's interesting because a lot of times, like, I've been doing workouts and I ask myself, like, why am I pushing myself so hard? And like, why was I training so hard for sports in the summer? Like, it was just like causing me ache after ache. Like, I had a pretty bad summer for injuries. Like, I was doing a gymnastics strength program to try to get the ring muscle up. And then I got it. Then I ended up hurting my shoulder because I was, throwing the Frisbee with my throwing arm like 5 days a week. And then it was just too much. Like, I find like, I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna, do what I tell my clients. I'm just going to focus on my mobility, and just do things that feel good. Like today, I did like a leg workout today. And, the old me as a power lifter, I was doing front squats with 100 pounds. The old me would be so embarrassed to lift that much in a gym. Whereas today, it just kind of felt good. I treated it more as mobility. Like I did slow controlled movement and I didn't go really past 70% like intensity or anything. And then I find like that's the thing. Like if I gave up that energy in the gym, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now because I'd be too tired from, squatting 315 pounds. Like I don't want to, sacrifice those things. And I did that in my undergrad. Like I sacrificed powerlifting for studying and I had no energy to study.
Yeah. Learning how to manage your energy, that's a skill. right? Because it's so easy to put it into working out because you get this like immediate reward of like feeling like you did something. But there's more to life than just how hard you can train for a lot of people. Obviously, if it's your job, it's your job. But like I said, I think for most people, it's not. It's something that you're doing that you need to do. Like if you have a body, you need to do certain things to keep it healthy. And that's just the way it is. So what are those things? And then how do we make sure that we don't push it like naively or ignorantly in too much, and that's where an understanding of training the body, how the human body works. It's not a machine that you're trying to maximize. Well, for me, it's not a machine. And I used to think it like, it's a machine. I need to train it. But now it's like, it's not a machine where I am trying to optimize for the amount of physical work the machine can do. I don't think about my body that way. I think of it as the thing that allows me to operate in our physical world, and I want it to feel good, and I want it to last, and I want it to be capable, and I want it to be able to do different things. I want it to, I don't want to be, I think certain aesthetic things will happen because you're using it that way. And that's really what drew me to CrossFit in the first place, was like that idea of the results come because you're doing functional movements. But then it ended up becoming, it like spun out of control into this hyper competitive, push yourself to the limits thing. And then that's why I can't really do it anymore, because I don't believe that. But the heart of this idea of like, you train in a way where you're well-rounded, but also rested, not exhausted all the time. I think that you need to train, but always get back to a place of being well-rested, because how can you really operate well physically if you're always tired? I think you should try to not get tired. I mean, I think you should train to a point of getting tired in your session, but you should frequently be totally recovered and fresh feeling. So that, that looks like different things to different people. It may mean decreasing your training frequency. Like you said, you started lifting 1 or 2 days a week. I actually interviewed a lot of people, and I asked them, how often do you think people really need to be training? And I think you can get away with 2 times a week training with weights, maybe even once. I've only been training like 1 day a week, weight training, for the last 6 months. And I've been doing other things, running, and I've been diving into, I go to this yoga school here, which has exposed so many things that I'm a beginner.
Yeah.
I'm a beginner. And it's so humbling. It's so hard because it's like, I suck. But it's obvious, it's not something that you suck at. It's something that it's a thing that you're exploring. It's not like you suck. It's not like a sport where it's like you're either good or bad. That's also something we think about with training, isn't it? Like that we're good at it.
I mean, it is fun and it's okay to enjoy it, but I think like a lot of people are like too obsessed with it. Like, wanting to, like you can still, transform your body. You can still de-stress. You can still move in different capacities. And, a lot of what I try to teach my clients is, deskbound professionals is like, let's first, build the foundation. Let's just get you mobile. Let's just get you moving 5 minutes more a day at your desk. And then, if you still have the energy to go to the gym, but like, you don't necessarily need to, to do that every day. Like, I just want you to, move your joints, improve the mobility, go through full range of motion every day, and, build strength in those positions, and, just use that to be more mindful of your posture. But like, you don't need to be killing yourself. And I think it just takes time. Like, as you become more of a veteran trainer, lifter, whatever you are, like, it just kind of you figuring it out. But a lot of people go all or nothing. Like, if I'm committed to this plan, or, I'm not doing anything, like they're like 1 day a week is too soft, or, like I got to do CrossFit. I got to do 100 muscle ups, or maybe instead of like, everyone's focused on the quantity, not the quality. Like, I rather see you go do, 10 nice body weight squats than throwing a barbell on your back and rounding it with 3 plates. Like, I saw the guy at the gym the other day, and I hate to be that guy. He was squatting 3 plates with like terrible. I mean, terrible form, like back fully rounded, neck up. And I tried to tell him like he probably shouldn't be doing that shit. And he got so mad at me, but I was like, whatever, man. Like I just want to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's such a reflective thing too. I think the longer you
Mhm.
train, the more you reflect on like, what am I really
Yeah.
doing? What am I really doing here? Like it's so ingrained in us to think that we should be training squatting and bench press and all this stuff, right? That's so ingrained and like that's normal. That's something that was invented to train because we don't do things physically enough and like it's healthy for us to do things physically. But to think that training with a barbell has to be the norm, I think that's weird. It is one tool that can be used to apply certain stresses to the like the fundamental thing is that we are trying to stress the human body in a particular way to get an adaptation.
Hey, my name is Ian, and I've been working with David for about 2 months now. I initially came to him for some hip pain in my front groin, and then some back pain in my shoulders, and the back shoulders and the mid back. Since working with him, I've noticed a decrease in pain overall. In those two areas, I have noticed a better control of my shoulders, my scapulas in particular. Some really targeted growth there. Complete elimination in my groin area, increased mobility there. So what I noticed most and like about David is he designed something based upon feedback that I provide and what he notices in our one-on-one sessions. So I highly recommend working with him and giving him a shot.
Yeah, I feel like people are forgetting that.
Right, like that's really and I think that there's two categories of things. Category number one is you moving something, and category two, which I think is quite neglected in strength and conditioning, is you moving yourself. I think that the vast majority of people going to the gym are moving things. They are not moving themselves.
And that's when injuries are going to happen. Like if you're just lifting weights but you can't do any calisthenics, like if you can't move your body, then you're going to be more susceptible to injury. And that's why I love calisthenics. Like it's still my main kind of thing. Like my favorite exercise is probably pull-ups. But like I find like I like doing like some barbell work here and there, but I find like I'm just like exposing myself to more soreness. And I just like whenever I bench my body, like I have good mobility. I'm a personal trainer, strength and conditioning, all that. Like I found whenever I bench, like whether it be once a week or twice a week, and I'm really pushing the weight on it, like no matter what I do, my shoulders just don't like it. And I could have the most impeccable form. So like I do push-ups, I do dips, I'll do, some shoulder press with single arm. And I just like I feel like, we're stuck in these ideals, like everyone, you got to bench, but really it's exactly what you said. Like how well can you I see people who bench who can't even keep their hips up in a push-up. I'm like, well, what are you training for? Like,
yeah,
let's back it up.
A bench press is really weird. Like it simulates nothing real.
Mm-hmm. Like you're like a linebacker.
But it's like you're laying on a thing and your knees are bent at 90 degrees and then your arms are fixed. Your arms are fixed to a straight bar and you're pushing it straight up. Like that simulates nothing in reality. I mean, it's good from a stress point of view because you could load the pressing pattern heavy, but your body is totally disconnected. Like you're not creating tension as a whole body. So I think it's weird, really. But
Yeah,
we look at it as if it's normal.
Everyone thinks it's the king of movements, but it's not.
Yeah, like I like to imagine sometimes like have you seen the movie Avatar?
Yeah.
Are you like familiar with the movie Avatar?
Oh yeah, I've seen. I heard they're coming out with the second one, but yeah, I've seen the first few times.
So there's a part when when Jake Sully first gets transported into his avatar body, and he's opening his eyes and he like looks at his hands and he's like, whoa, sometimes I try to imagine that like I'm doing that, but in a human body. Like, whoa, dude, what is this thing? And like, what do I really know about this thing? And then like, if you take that kind of like mindset into the gym and then you look at what people are doing, it's like really weird what people are doing. Like you're laying down, pressing something a bunch. That's weird. Like if you think about like, if you were to watch, there's a lot of people who watch like how human babies develop, to watch like the natural patterns of how a human moves before we start thinking about it and messing it up. And if you do the same thing, like watch in nature, there's no like repetitive. Can you imagine like watching a monkey like on a branch being like, I have to pull myself up in this very particular form, or I have bad form, and like, no, it doesn't exist. I don't know. It's so weird sometimes, like what we do and what we think is normal in training. I mean, we can certainly understand that, if we do 10 or 15 reps, or if we push to a certain intensity or exertional level, that we get certain tissue adaptations. But we have to ask ourselves, like, is the way that I'm trying to get that adaptation the best for the health of the joints of the human body?
Exactly.
And the nervous system. Like that's what you're really trying to do, right? You're trying to make the tissues stronger. You're trying to develop the nervous system's ability to control, contract, coordinate, all of those things. That's why I mentioned dancing. It's such a coordination thing, like it's a totally different capacity than lifting weights, which is a very fixed, like contract, push.
Dancers are some of the best movers on the planet. Like, with TikTok being viral, I'm seeing some crazy dancers and people shuffling and stuff. I'm like, that takes a lot of motor control and coordination. Like I tried to learn the shuffle a few weeks ago and I fell on my ass. It's hard.
It's totally different. Like I said, I've started going to this yoga school, which has been like what I've primarily been training. And man, I have found certain things that I am so limited in, like so limited in my ability to laterally bend my body, for example. Like that is, and you just don't, like, it's like the art of like not contracting your muscles. Like going to the gym, you're like, you're trying to contract, but what about not contracting? What about relaxing? Who says that contracting really hard that's like one side of the coin. You also need to know how to let go and relax, let your joints be loose, and then controlled when they need to be controlled. That's why I think it's really important to constantly try. And this comes back from like some of the original CrossFit ideas, to constantly try and play new sports, but nobody really follows that. But I think it's great advice, constantly trying new things, because you find like it's like this variety of different stresses to the body, but also having the mentality of being okay being new at something. And I think the older you get, that's more important, so you don't stay rigid mentally, psychologically. If you don't try new things, then you just get pushed into a smaller and smaller and smaller corner, which I think is what happens for most people. But if you're open to new things, and to be open to new methods and new techniques or whatever, you have to be okay doing something that you're not comfortable doing because it's new and it might expose things that you're unfamiliar with or that you don't feel comfortable with. But that's what keeps you open and able to do more, which I think aligns with what I'm saying about my goal, at least, being the longevity of physical function. In order to keep that, you can't get pushed into a corner. And you get pushed into a corner when you get rigid with your thinking, when you get rigid with what you're willing to try or not try. And that comes from a place of being okay, learning, like remembering how to learn it. Remembering how to learn something new that you don't know how to do.
That's really where I found my appeal. Like I've been doing yoga since I was 16, and I'm 27 now. And that's what the appeal was. Like I started P90X yoga and I started teaching. I thought it was cool. It was like I didn't know what, like side bending and the splits. Like I didn't even know the body could do these things in back bends. Like, and now I
Oh,
can,
back bends, like
man, the
getting
best,
into a full extension of your entire body. Like you don't do that.
incredible.
You don't do that strength training. And so you
No.
totally miss these global positions. Like, sorry to interrupt you.
No, and I was just gonna say, like, and there was a period in my life where I just trained handstands and back bends on the stall bars, and the goal was to do a hollow back handstand, and I did it. But man, like, I felt so good in that position. Eventually, I could do like a one arm back bend, and I was doing back bend push ups, and like that's real functional movement, not back bend push ups. That stuff is like that's when things become functional because we live in a world where our arms are always forward, and I always tell my students in yoga, like, let's come backwards, let's back bend, let's work on some shoulder extension because that's why everyone has bad posture these days. Because when do we do, people do like glutes, they love the glutes on Instagram for the posterior chain, but no one's doing like a lot of that back bending stuff.
Yeah. So in my exposure to yoga training, I realized that, and sort of what they explained was that you basically have full body forward bending, backward bending, twisting, and side bending, and then combinations of all of that. And they do like at least one of each position in each session, at least in the methodology of the place I go. And I was thinking, like, why do I not lift weights that way? We have these patterns: upper body pushing, upper body pulling, hinging, squatting, split stance, these main strength and conditioning patterns. So I started asking myself, why do I train in an unbalanced way? Why don't I do each of those movements in each session to have a more balanced approach to training? And I realized it's because I had an assumption that I need to do 3 or 4 exercises for each. Like I have to do 3 variations of pushing on push day and then hit triceps after it, because like that's how you get it to develop, So what I've been exploring in my own training is doing all of the patterns each session.
That's pretty cool.
Which I don't know anybody who does that except for Joel Seedman. If you're familiar with Joel Seedman, I was talking to him and I got one of his programs, and he told me, he was like, I do all of the patterns each day. And I didn't realize at the time, sort of like the profoundness of that, I guess you could say, if it's profound. But we have so many assumptions that can't work. It's not enough stress, man. You got to hit just the upper body. You got to do just pushing. But if you did 2 days a week, for example, and this is what I'm doing this in my own training before I really talk about it publicly, other than right now. I mean, I'm not publishing anything about this because I'm still experimenting on myself. But I'm trying to take that approach of like 2 days a week strength training, where I do these main strength training patterns. And to me, the strength training patterns I call them segmental exercises versus global exercises. Like if you're doing something in yoga where like you're going into a full, like a bridge, the whole body is moving to make that position possible, right? Like it's all moving in the same direction globally. Versus in strength training, if you're doing a deadlift, you're not moving all the joints together. You're moving the joints in different positions and you're holding some of them fixed and you're moving some of them. And you're trying to do that in a particular way. So I think that's fine, because those exercises are to use the human body to lift as much weight as possible to develop the muscles and the nervous system. And there's definitely mechanical ways to lift heavier more safely for the spinal joints if you pay attention to the way that you're moving those. So I feel like you have to balance that with going into these global positions where you move all of the joints together, or you lose that and you develop these weird rigidities and imbalances in these global movements. Like if you do so much overhead pressing where you're keeping your abdomen tight, then when you try to do a back bend, you can't move it together. You can't do it because you've developed a thing where like you have to hold your abdomen tight while you lift your arm overhead. And now you have shoulder impingement. Yeah. You don't understand why. It's because the strength training exercises need to be controlled in their ranges. In my opinion, I don't think you need to load the end ranges heavy. I think that's a mistake in training. I think you should explore the ranges without a lot of load, where the goal is not strength and conditioning. And then when you're trying to build strength or conditioning, you use your joints in a very thoughtful way to not push them hard at the end ranges with the load that your neuromuscular system can maximally do. I think that's a massive mistake people are making in their approach to training. And it goes against people thinking you need to do maximal range of motion with as much weight as you can handle. I disagree. I think you should,
like, even for bodybuilding, like you don't need to be you don't need to be powerlifting if you just want to train and look good and not get injured. Like you don't need to power lift, and same thing, like you don't need to be you can do higher reps. Like if you're doing squats, like you can do 10, 12, 15 reps, build some endurance, and fatigue yourself that way, versus like I don't have any interest in ever squatting 2 plates again. Like what is that going to do for me? Like these days, like that was my ultimate goal back when I was powerlifting, was the 3-plate squat, but I just didn't feel fulfilled when I got there. I felt more knee pain than anything, patellar tendonitis. And it's interesting how we chase, especially as you grow up too as a lifter, like your goals change. And for me, like that's why I always found the appeal for calisthenics and gymnastics. Like my long-term goal is I want to do a straddle planche for 5 seconds. Like because how many people can do that? Like
that'd be
so
incredible.
cool. And I've
been so many things, right? Like if you put all your energy into squatting or deadlifting super heavy, you're missing out on the ability to train all these other amazing things the body can do.
Yeah, man. Like to be able to do a front lever, like how many people can do a front lever? Like very few.
Yeah. And they like this sort of
and they all just you see them on Instagram, but you don't see people at the gym doing front levers and stuff. Like you'll see guys doing muscle ups with a ton of momentum, but like it's crazy the stuff you can do when you do what the body's designed to do.
Yeah, and I think that strength and condition, at least for me, not having a sport that I'm really training for, or I'm not a Olympic weightlifter or anything. Like if I think about like the physical things that I enjoy doing or that I want to get better at, I don't care about getting better at lifting heavier. Like lifting heavier is a way to get better at the things that I enjoy doing. Like I enjoy running. I enjoy running fast. I enjoy bouldering. I enjoy doing yoga and like challenging myself to get into these different like sort of calisthenic type positions. Again, that's not a world that I'm super familiar with. I just don't have a lot of training experience there, but I'm exploring it more and more. Like I want to be able to go into like a handstand and then come down into like different stuff, right? That's like really
it's so cool. Like handstand to front,
yeah.
Straddle planche is just like when you watch people who have my favorite thing in the Olympics is gymnastics. It's just like wow.
Yeah, that's why I think there's
or just the things you can do. It's just like for example, like we said, like backbends, like what exercise with weights can you do that with? Like I think it's just our whole notion of like society too, like, and even what we're taught as a personal trainer and like weight fit in high school is the weights, but like yes, you can do cable rotations but there's only so many things you can do with weight in terms of like folding forward. Like I just think we don't think of the conventional things to apply to functional movements.
Right. And then I think the problem that comes from that is we want to put these things as if they're contradictory to each other. Like it's either that weightlifting and weight training is good or calisthenics is good. But we can't dare say that they're both good. You just have to choose wisely which parts you're going to use. And I feel like that's where it's like people are in these camps and then they can't use the best of the different camps because they think that they have to be against the other camps. It's like if you're a calisthenics person, then like if you're lifting weights, like how stupid are you? Or if you're a weightlifter, why would you do calisthenics? Weightlifting is obviously the best thing to be doing. Instead of like, well, actually, I believe that they're complementary. I think that if you improve your ability to train with weights, it'll make you better at your calisthenics. And if you train calisthenics and you lift weights or vice versa, like if you train calisthenics and if you train a bridge, it's called a back bridge when you put your hands on the ground, you lift your hips up. you're going to be better at pressing because it's easier. You have the range of motion, you have the things moving together. Like they make each other better. They're not things that have to be, they're not against each other. You get better at one, it helps you get better at the other. And then you can sort of go, it's like walking up a steep hill. If you zigzag, it makes it easier. Yeah. But we like to have good, this is good and that's evil. Yeah.
No, man, I really like your approach to things. And I didn't know like we would get into like these whole functional movements on the podcast today, but it's really cool to, to chat with someone who's on the same page as me. And I like that you also are changing your focus and getting into, helping manual therapists. Because I feel like too many, whether it be like in the physio world, everyone's so against manual therapy, where I really resonate with, the Chinese medicine, the holistic stuff. Like touch is so healing. And, if we just like, if we're just saying that manual therapy doesn't work, there's a lot of therapists on there, like supposed to, they're like, a study came out, it doesn't matter what tool you use, it all has the same effects. I'm like, there's techniques that do work and there's techniques that are less advantageous, but like touch is healing and it's been used for thousands of years. And if we, don't use that at all, just like, do you feel good when your partner hugs you? Same thing, like massage can help us relax. Like the whole time we're talking about training, not kill yourself, like do things that are relaxing.
Right. It's like, I mean, I've had to think about this a lot because like with T-Tool, it's like a manual therapy tool, right? And there's clearly people who are like, who like think it's so ridiculous to do manual therapy or use a tool or use a spoon or whatever. It's like, there's no studies to show, I think that you said this, like, do you like when you hug your partner because it feels good? What else do you need? If you have a client who has pain in their shoulder and you do manual therapy on their shoulder and they are like, oh, that feels good. What else do you need to justify doing it? They like it. They are paying you to do something that they like. And it changes the relationship of that person with that part of their body. If your shoulder hurts and somebody does manual therapy and then that shoulder feels good, you took something that they were connected to as a part of my body that hurts. Now the part of my body that hurts has a good, pleasurable sensation to it. The fact that anybody argues that that's like not worth doing is just totally, they're so focused on the research that they're missing what's literally right in front of their eyes. The person likes it. It feels good. What do you need?
Yeah, for real. Like evidence-based practice only came out like the last 10, 15 years, but like beyond the point, like we have to do like your universal truth is what gets results and what feels good for you. Like if that works well for you, then like I get massages, like I go to a great massage therapist here in Halifax. I go to her every 2-3 weeks. It makes me feel good. It helps me manage my stress. And, I actually like my pain is, it helps with me personally. This is what I do on my journey. This is my truth for my pain management. It's about finding that balance that works for your lifestyle.
Yeah. You look at like, have you ever petted a dog and then like how much they like it? And then you stop and they look at you.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's because it feels good.
Yeah.
Since when do we need a randomized controlled trial instead of our patient telling us, yeah, that feels really good, it makes it feel better? Great. We just had an opportunity to interrupt the painful cycle and association you have with that part of your body. And it's like you create a wedge and then you can, and that's like someone coming to you for pain versus doing like a massage because it's relaxing and it's more systemic. I mean, it's obviously systemic. There's plenty of studies to show that after getting massage therapy, people actually have like different enzymes in their mouth released because
That's so cool.
They have a different, they change states from like sympathetic to parasympathetic, and they do psychological evaluations of people before and after massage. And they have like more openness. They have, they report more like lower levels of stress, psychological well-being. So there's so many things to it beyond just like the other thing too is, which is interesting I know we got to wrap up soon, but people do these studies where they're like, okay, we had 16 people with shoulder pain. 8 of them had manual therapy and exercise, and 8 of them just had exercise. and they had the same results. Yeah, but
So
how was the process? Did the people who get manual therapy enjoy the process more? Did they have more time, more moments of feeling good during the process? Do we not value that? And also, how do we even know that they had the same underlying reasons for having shoulder pain in the first place? We just know that they had shoulder pain doing certain things, but we don't know. There's so much more detail that we don't know. And it just closes us off to thinking that if we do anything that we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt, then we're these like bad therapists who are that we're going to get made fun of on social media because we're not perfect following the exact evidence. And again, it comes back from having these jaded, old, cynical physical therapists and people talking like that they're the kings of all knowledge and that they're toxic. They're toxic.
Yeah, I don't really like the culture. Like, why are we bashing what other clinicians do? Like, that's just one thing I don't like about social media.
Superiority complexes from insecure people is unfortunately the reality. If you really boil it down, that's where it comes from.
You're like, why do I need you to tell me that I shouldn't be doing manual therapy on my patients when, one, I personally found it beneficial, and I don't want people to just come in and just do just lie on the bed like and go on some ultrasound IFC. Like, I want people to feel good, and I want to be a healer, not a therapist. I'm a healer.
Right? How dare you do things to your patients that they like? You're such a terrible therapist and healer because you do things that they tell you that makes their body feel better. How dare you?
Man, it's so great to connect and have you on the podcast. Like, we're definitely on the same page in terms of training and rehab. I definitely want to have you back on sometime soon, because I feel like we could talk for 8 hours. But for those listening, like, Ryan has a ton of old resources on his Instagram at the Movement Fix, but check out his YouTube channel too. He's got like 7 years of video. Link will be in the show notes below. And then for those of you listening who are desk bound and they're, you're struggling with, just figure out how to implement mobility into your day-to-day life, feel free to send me a message on Instagram at deskbound therapy. And I'd love to give you some tips, or message Ryan as well. We would both love to help you out. So thanks for listening. And, let the followers know if there's anything else you want to share with them.
No, I think those are the main resources. Themovementfix.com is my website. And like you said, there's many, many years of posts and videos to go through that are organized by different lifts and body areas. And yeah. Hey, thanks for inviting me to come on your show, man.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to connect. We'll have to chat soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Yeah, you too. Thank you.